Welcome back to the Magnanimous Podcast. So we have a few things on the agenda today. A couple things about Donald Trump, AI. So let's just jump straight into this, shall we? On Saturday, the 1st of February, Donald Trump imposed his tariffs that he said would take effect the 1st of February, and said tariffs did take effect the 1st of February. He imposed 25% tariffs for Mexico, and I think it was a 10% tariff on Chinese imports, and I think it was 10% for energy in Canada. Yeah, 10% energy in Canada. And of course, right off the bat, said countries retaliated and imposed equal tariffs. Okay, anyway. I didn't touch on this last week. Donald Trump is building up and fortifying the U.S. Now, I did mention last week that Donald Trump I flirted with the idea. Donald Trump is actually, saying that he is against war. However, if you look deep enough into what he is doing, he may be trying to end the wars, but, and there's a but here, he is fortifying America, which is a good thing. However, there is a deeper meaning behind this. And I touched on this last week, like I said. Donald Trump fortifying America, whether it be with the new Iron Dome that he had mentioned, or acquiring the Panama Canal, because they did, Panama being, break their treaty, and I will touch more on that in a minute. And then Greenland, of course. Greenland, he wants to bring Greenland into America as a territory, kind of like we have some other territories in the South Americas. But let's dive deeper. Let's dive just a touch deeper on the Panama Canal. This one, I think most people understand it and grasp it, but I'm going to talk about it because there are probably a few people out there that don't quite understand what is happening. There's always more to the story, so to speak, what they say in the news, not necessarily what is the truth. And most people read the headline. That's as far as they go, the shock and awe value. And these news medias, they understand psychology, they understand how to write things, and they understand that people are lazy and that they won't read them. So let's dive a little deeper into the Panama Canal. Now, Donald Trump says that Panama, when we originally built the Panama Canal, broke the treaty recently by allowing China to take control of the Panama Canal. Now, China says, we have no affiliation with this, we haven't had control. I think that's a lie. And the reason I think that's a lie is, okay, if you read a few, just a little bit of research will pull this information up. The Panama Canal, they've had Chinese signs up there. There's a lot of people that say that they've seen the Chinese working around the Panama Canal, which is giving Donald Trump justification to say you broke the treaty and America is just going to be a bully and go take it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make this prediction. He will take the Panama Canal, and he will eventually get Greenland. Both of these, if you look at where these two places are located, if the Panama Canal gets shut down, it makes it where we have to go further south and come back up, right, to get our goods into dangerous waters and come up. That was the whole point of building the Panama Canal. If we take the Panama Canal back under Trump's justification, we then control the flow through said Panama Canal. You get the idea. It's kind of like taking the least path of resistance. You want to go in a straight line. You don't necessarily want to go, unless you're enjoying yourself taking a ride through the woods or something. You want to fly straight lines and go the easiest, least path of resistance. That said, Greenland would also be strategic because of its location. Just look at it on a map. You can see the strategic placement, and then put that together with the Iron Dome. Donald Trump is very, very clearly getting ready for a war. He's getting ready for a war. Now, am I saying Donald Trump is pro-war? No, I'm not. I'm just saying this man understands that other country want to do the US harm. Understandably, the US is a bully. Okay. Now, if you understand, and I touched about this, if you know anything about the fourth turning, I'm not going to go in deep about this, but look up the book, The Fourth Turning. I'll put it on the screen so you can see it here. So, the fourth turning is there's four turnings, right? So, the fourth turning being the last turning. However, in the fourth turning, that's when you usually see a big war, and you can track this back, all the way to the beginning of this country. There is usually a big war about every 80 years, so every generation or so. And at the beginning, or the first part of the turning, that is when there's rebuilding, there's growth, you get the idea. It's prosperous all the way through roughly that 80-year period. And I'm not putting exact numbers on this. It can be 80, it could be more, it could be 90, it could be 93. Anyway, read the fourth turning. You'll understand what I'm talking about. But in the fourth part of in the fourth turning, should I say, the fourth turning is when you see the big war, the big conflict. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing, if you read the headlines, and I'll throw up a bunch of them here for you to read, everybody keeps bringing up this common number, which is 2030. They keep saying 2030, 2030, 2030, Agenda 2030, whatever, okay? 2030 is the number. It's very evident that it's 2030, 2030-ish. And I'm putting an ish on the end because this war that is coming, it could be, say, I'm just putting a hypothetical here, at the end of Trump's presidency, or it could be in the beginning or towards the end of whoever takes the presidency next. Personally, I would like to see somebody like J.D. Vance take the presidency after Donald Trump. However, I don't necessarily think that is what is going to happen. I think they need a warmonger in there for the president after Donald Trump, and said warmonger will be the one to do the deed. Okay? Now, for anybody in America that thinks that war cannot come to American soil, you are wrong. It will happen eventually. I personally believe that it is going to be the Chinese. I think the Chinese will be on American soil. And I think that most of the war is going to be fought in the digital world, hacking, so on and so forth. You get the idea. Let's let that segue into this next part here. I'm not going to dive too deep into the fourth turning. If you would like to see more on the fourth turning, I can go deeper into it. I can do an entire, probably 2 or 3 podcasts about it. But I think the war that is coming, 2030s-ish, let's put that in quotation because it could be 2029, could be 2036, could be 2033. Who knows exactly when? But there is a big war coming. And I'm not speaking to the people right now that think that I'm wrong. I'm not saying I'm 100% correct. I'm just reading history here. I'm looking at history. I'm dot connecting, as I like to put it. If I'm correct, and there's other people that agree with me on this, but if I'm correct, and we are in the fourth turning, we're going to see a massive war, and then we're going to see the rebuilding. If we go back just a little bit, the beginning or the first turning, that was the boomer generation. I see a lot of younger people mad at the boomer generation. They're like, oh, they had it so good. They had it so good. And it just prospered. And their houses went from $30,000 to $3 million overnight. And I'm like, no, it didn't. It took an entire generation to get to where, you know what I'm saying? Like it took their whole lives. And that is a whole nother subject, which I could do another podcast on the Federal Reserve. This country was never meant to operate on a fiat currency scenario, okay? That was implemented during 1912, 13 area. And then because of printing and so on and so forth, it just inflated. And now here we are. And, people say, well, I can't afford this and I can't afford that. And people had the same problems in the 1970s if they had some of the stickiest inflation back in the 70s, and it lasted like 10 years. It lasted a long time, all the way up until the year I was born. I think they were still in it. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent here. Let's segue straight into the next part of what I was saying, which is the war. Okay. Whoever controls artificial intelligence will control the world. Whoever controls artificial intelligence will control the world. Okay. This country or group of countries, probably going to be one country. It looks like China's leading. Probably going to be a lot more AI wars. You get the idea. Okay. Artificial intelligence is the key to all of this, I believe. Artificial intelligence will guide said countries in strategy to take over countries. Some of you might ask, why would China want America? It's, whatever. Look at China. Look at how big they are. They've got smog everywhere. They got people everywhere. They've got, they're trying to control how many children they can have. They're just growing too big too fast, or they did grow too big too fast, and now they need places to go. This is really a warning for those that are paying attention and understand what's coming. And if you think for 2 seconds, okay, let's bring those people bring this into understanding for the people that are biblical, all right? If you look at the history of God's chosen people went into captivity, whether it be Egypt or if they had, spent the 40 years in the wilderness wandering around, whatever. God is not going to allow his said chosen people to do things against him without ramifications. That's not how God works. I'm really speaking to the people that are believers, understand the times that we live in. People think, well, I think I was born for a whole different generation and I wasn't supposed to live here. You were appointed by God to live in the generation that you live in. You're supposed to be in this generation. Me personally, I'm just going to give you an example here. I like the simple life. Okay. I would rather raise chickens, raise a family, raise a garden, live off the land. Let's go back to the 40s, 50s era before technology, stuff like that. But I personally thrive in a technological based era. I thrive in it because I embraced it and I understand my gifts. That's what I'm saying. Understand your gifts, use them for the kingdom, and let's grow the kingdom. The enemy is constantly building his kingdom and advancing his kingdom, but you don't see very many people on God's side advancing their kingdom. So let's advance God's kingdom. All right. And that's what I'm trying to do. Okay. Let's go back into artificial intelligence. So whoever controls AI is going to control the world. It's kind of like the world order that everybody, if you want to go into the conspiracy realm, everybody was talking about the new world order. You can see George Bush, go back and find it. I'm sure there are a lot of people, a lot of you understand this, but the new world order, well, that new world order, should I say, is no longer new. It's old and it's out. It's gone. Now we need a new world order. Now, I'm not backing this in any way, okay? I'm not for man, I'm for God. That is it. That is where I draw the line. I'm just a passerby through this realm that we live in right now here on earth. After that, I hope to get to, to stand before my God and say, or stand before my God and him tell me, well done, good and faithful servant. That's all I'm doing, okay? So, building the Iron Dome, Greenland, Panama Canal, fourth turning, AI. All 5 of those things I've touched on. But if you put them all together, in a nutshell, it makes sense, okay? If you don't agree with me on the Panama Canal and saying that they didn't break it, the treaty, that's your prerogative. I think that they did break it. But yeah, that is the gist of today's podcast. Very short, very sweet. Let me know if any of this resonates with you in any way. And remember, keep your heads up out there. Keep going, keep trying, and I will see you in the next episode.